Hey guys, welcome back. So we're continuing with more Cult of Carnage misery, where now we find Liz Allen bonded to a Carnage anti-Venom hybrid symbiote. And in the name of science, she trying to see what it do. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so coming back, we continue with Liz Allen's initial bonding with the Carnage and Anti-Venom hybrid symbiote strain, which for a moment causes her to have another flashback about her late husband, Harry Osborn, who at one point told her, "We all have darkness to conquer. You gotta face it head on. So the next time you feel like happiness is impossible, just laugh." Which for Harry, this helped him when he was hearing voices in his head, in the moments where he believed he was going to relapse into goblin mode. But just after this memory, Liz remembers another that happened much later when she was pregnant with Normie, where now Harry's not feeling as optimistic, and mainly because he's nervous about being a father. So now he's telling Liz if something were to happen and he were to relapse, then she needs to take Normie and they need to leave. And it's not because he's feeling tempted at this point to become the goblin again, but rather it's because he doesn't know if that's going to happen days, weeks, months from now. And because Harry knew Liz, he knew that her solution to this would be to try and fix him. So Liz remembers Harry telling her, "If you stick with me when I become unfixable, you will feel nothing but misery for the rest of your life." Which from here pulls us back to what's happening now, with Liz, who has successfully bonded with the Carnage hybrid symbiote, checking on Dr. Steven after the recent Alchemax attack. And all they really know right now is that the person who did this was one of their guardsmen, but they still don't know exactly who it was. And Dr. Steven is more concerned about Liz going after that guy than he is about his own well-being pretty much, because he's just telling her how now that she's equipped with the Carnage and Anti-Venom strain, she's able to go after this guy, because now she's something to be feared. Meanwhile, Liz is just cutting Dr. Steven's face. But again, he's more intrigued by the progress that's been made with Liz successfully bonding with the Carnage strain hybrid and confirming that she's okay. But things go left for a minute when they find out that the test subject, Grace, was freed from her containment pod during the recent attack, as Grace sneaks up on Liz and tears her in half, which to her surprise, Liz discovers that she's able to just reassemble herself with relative ease. So Liz then slices Grace in half, just to see if she's able to do the same thing, which I mean, it would have been messed up if Grace couldn't, but she does. And come to find out, Grace's intelligence has increased substantially, which now allows her to form the proper sentences to tell Liz how much she doesn't appreciate being a test subject. But for Liz, instead of having this conversation with Grace, she's more or less like, "Look, you're a chimpanzee, okay? And I'm doing all this research for the greater good." And after that, Liz just beats Grace into submission, only to soon after hear a terrified little Stanley yell stop. So Liz puts Grace in another containment room and she takes Stanley home. And it's funny because she's apologizing to Stanley like, she didn't mean for him to see that. And Liz was pretty clever with the way she handled it, because she left as Misery and came back as herself Liz, so that Stanley wouldn't know that was her. But nonetheless, with her apologizing about what happened, Stanley's just like, "It's okay, Aunt Liz," because for a kid his age, he's seen a lot. So Liz promises Stanley that things are going to be normal from here on out. And right there, I'm just kind of like, are they though? But also while they're leaving, Liz feels like they're being watched. But when she looks to see who it is, they're gone. And later on, when we return with Liz to Alchemax, at this point her and Dr. Steven have gotten the word about the attack being from their former guardsman, Corwin Jones. And while she's here, Dr. Steven runs a couple of tests to make sure that the Carnage strain hybrid isn't influencing Liz in any kind of way, because she has her suspicions that the symbiote is causing her to be a bit more aggressive, only for Dr. Steven to tell her that it's quite the opposite, because as it turns out, it's the aggression that's coming from Liz that's allowing her to tame the suit. And he was able to come to this conclusion by running scans on Liz and comparing her results to those on a hidden symbiote strand that Corwin Jones didn't get. But before Dr. Steven can run any more tests, Liz tells him that there's no time, because she needs to go after Jones and get those symbiotes back. So from here, the first place that Liz goes to is the address that Jones had on his employment form, where at first all she finds is a yacht full of weird dolls that turn out to be a type of security measure, because as soon as Liz boards the yacht, they tell her she's trespassing and they attack, just moments before the yacht explodes, which now lets the two of them know that this guy's crazy, and he's the last kind of person who you want running around with stolen symbiotes. And so next, when we jump over to Corwin Jones, who's currently at an undisclosed location, speaking to a shadowy figure as he offloads the symbiotes from his drones into these separate containers, but it isn't long before we find out that this shadowy figure that he's talking to is Carlton Drake from the Life Foundation. And now, much like what we saw in issues 3 and 4 of the Venom series, where Carlton Drake explained to Mr. Carson the whole idea of pushing symbiotes to their upper limits, causing them to evolve faster, because as it stands, symbiotes have their name because of what's been observed to be symbiosis between whatever symbiote and its host. But at the time, Carlton Drake went on to share that symbiosis is a choice, because if that symbiote were to choose to break down their host, or lobotomize them, like what we saw with the sleeper symbiote in Venom First Host, then that would create the argument to where a quote-unquote symbiote could be redefined as something else. And this was why at the time Carlton Drake equipped Mr. Carson with the gear needed to become Spearhead, so that he can poke and prod at the Venom symbiote as a catalyst to its evolution, so that Meridius could use this to his benefit much further down the line. Because I want you guys to keep in mind, anytime we see Carlton Drake, whether in this series or the Venom series, he's working for Meridius, who really gave him a second chance at life, only to assign Drake to the task of pushing the Venom symbiote beyond its limitations, with Meridius mentioning that Liz will play her part as well, which we've started to see both in the Venom series and the new Carnage series. But instead of rehashing all of that here, I have those links down in the description for anyone who needs to get caught up. But right now, with Carlton Drake explaining a version of this to Corwin Jones, he first gets on Jones's case because initially Drake told him to leave Liz Allen unharmed, because Drake still needs Liz to play her part in the bigger picture. But ultimately, he goes on to tell Jones what he plans to do with these symbiotes, which in Drake's words are using them to their full potential. Because in a similar way to what we saw with Spearhead, Carlton Drake has made a suit that'll utilize all 4 of these symbiote strains to a single host, in a similar way to what we got in the 90s when Lasher, Riot, Agony, and Phage all came together to make your hybrid symbiote. Because even back then, it was teased at the time that the hybrid symbiote was going to be like the next Carnage, which I mean now in 2024, that's a tall order. And by no means is this suit gonna put Corwin Jones anywhere close to God level, but instead it's teasing the idea of someone as crazy as him wielding the power of 4 symbiotes, just so Carlton Drake can test their limits and benefit from what's learned without really caring about what happens to Corwin Jones when it's all said and done, let alone any casualties that may happen along the way. And after this, when we go back to Liz, we find her on another date with Dr. Zafar, which starts out as him checking on her to make sure she's okay after the Alchemax attack, which then turns into the two of them reminiscing about school. Things get heated, they kiss, and then Liz pulls back, while admitting that she's still not over Harry, amongst a number of other things she has going on. So Dr. Zafar asks for separate checks, and he dips out. I'm just playing. But he picks up from this conversation that Liz is looking for someone she can fix, and that's not him. So he covers the check and tells Liz to take care, to where from there she's just up all night thinking about how the date went sour, while checking in with Dr. Steven to see if there's been any updates on Corwin Jones, only to find out that there hasn't. So from here she does sit-ups for about 35 minutes before heading outside with her symbiote and more or less test her limitations to see if she's able to do some of the things that Carnage could do, which from here just has her swinging into one of those rooftop water towers to see if she can disassemble and reassemble her whole body, which she's able to do because the Carnage and Anti-Venom strains are both constantly devouring each other while regenerating themselves at the same time. And when she goes back to Alchemax, Dr. Steven explains that her whole body's a part of this cycle now, of being broken down and pieced back together, so it opens the conversation of her being able to create constructs, similar to what they've seen Carnage do in the past. And at this point, Dr. Steven's also been able to figure out that Corwin Jones has also been living under the name of one of his missing colleagues from the Marines, who is presumed dead, which now gives them another location of where he might be. So Liz gives Dr. Steven Harry's old phone to see if he can also figure out who is this mysterious caller from the other day, as she goes on her way to pay Corwin Jones a visit. And she ends up finding him at this other address, just chilling in a chair eating Girl Scout cookies and watching TV. So she lets him know on her way there she pieced some things together, because initially she thought about rolling up in here guns blazing, but it dawned on her that hitting Alchemax It's a high-paying job, but going by Mr. Jones's address, he's not living the high life. So if you put that together with him being discharged and all of his medical bills adding up, Liz tells him that he must have taken this job because he's dying. So next, she demands that he admits that it was Carlton Drake who hired him, and not so that she can necessarily go off on him, but she lets him know that she wants to help him, but he's gotta come clean. So Corwin comes clean alright, and he lets Liz know that he bugged Dr. Stevens' chair, cause he knew Alchemax had more symbiotes. But it was a surprise to him to find out that 2 of them bonded with Liz. So from here, he reveals that he's bonded with the 4 stolen symbiote strains, to where now he goes by the name of Madness. And he tells Liz, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life coming here. That was hilarious, watching you walk in here thinking I needed some kind of handout, so eager to help people. Something I learned early in my life, Miss Allen, is no good deed goes unpunished." And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.